All right, we are now live.
Okay, great. Yeah, so where to start? All right, so we have new devs coming on, and they're like, what is going on with this environment that we have? So I am not particularly strong on the method side of things, but I think I know enough about it to get at least give a good background for why we're doing things, why we've got things split off into two different repositories, and and commit some of the decisions on that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to open up Eclipse. And I'm going to go to our development server. And here it comes. Almost there. Should be any second now. I think I can go ahead and start navigating around in here. Okay, cool. So here we are. Let's see, I'm not sure how much background info to give, but so here's the tree structure of the stuff that's in method. And source code lives under portal config, so each one of these ignore all the folders that have branches hanging off of it. But all the folders in here represent a code base for a particular product line, like free sites or paid sites or radio, whatever. So I've been on the free sites team, so I'm going to go into np free here, and then okay, so under here there's all the little gadgets and doodads to make a method. Render its XML to HTML. And so let's see, we've got that organized under layouts and components. But one thing that is missing from layouts and components and yada yada is the front end stuff, style sheets and JS, and all that's going to be found under assets. So, pretty typical organization. Let's see, under here, under assets common, there's a bunch of stuff under here. Some of it needs to be cleaned up, but there's an app.js file which contains basically all of our front end JavaScript code compiled into one single bundle. And then I think under here, under CSS, again, there's a bunch of stuff that probably needs to be cleaned up. But there's an app.css, which is kind of a similar thing. It's a bundle of all the CSS that we need for the site. So nobody actually edits these files. These are automatically generated from source code. Now, the source code that ultimately generates these bundles does not live in method. There is no particularly good way that we know of to have method do build steps for us. So since we want to use modern development techniques for our front end thingies, like we want to use Sass and SCSS, and we want to use modern JavaScript kind of stuff. So how can we have that, but then somehow get it into somehow use the front end build tools and then get that result into method? So the answer to that that we've come up with, and really this was pioneered by the 512 Tech team, was to create an additional repo. So back in the Medley days, we had both Storyville and Medley templates. So it's not quite the same division, but it's kind of familiar to anybody that was developing on Method's sort of two repository system. But anyway, the idea is that the assets repository holds all of the source code for JavaScript and Sass, and then it also has everything that's required in order to take those source files, compile them all together, bundle them all up, and then push them, copy them over to Method. So now I'm going to bring up that assets repo for the NP-free code base. So it's over on GitHub, which is a good thing. And I don't know, what do I want to say about it? Yeah, so it's all Node and NPM based. The task runner is gulp, which is the same task runner that 512 team used. And there's a few different commands. The obvious thing is building and compiling. Also, it does linting, which ends up being a kind of an important thing. Let's see. Also, and I guess we'll get to this later. There's a proxy command which will allow you to do local development of your like JS and style sheet stuff without actually having to copy things up to Method every time you make a little change, or like conflicting with other devs when you're doing that kind of local development. And the last command on this little README here is gulp push, which will first do all the building, and then it will make a connection to the Method server and push those built files into Method. And I'll kind of get to that a bit later. So I'm trying to think of what.
Cameron.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Who wrote that documentation there? Of the commands.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, this is very useful.
Yeah, well, that's another cool thing about having our repositories on GitHub, because you just create a readme.md file, and then that's that. So it's easy. Okay, what do I want to go through next? Well, I guess let's just browse this repository. So so obviously you can choose to organize things however you want. But we chose to try to organize things in a way that would mirror the organization of stuff over in Method. So there's a layouts and components folder, and here's under components, there's a whole bunch of different stuff, and then I'm just going to open this up. So in this related content component thing, there's a single SCSS file, and it has Sass stuff. And I'm going to try and find something that we don't have very much JS in here at the moment. But I think there's some, not here. I think there's some under Storywell. Yeah, okay. So here's a JS file under the Storywell component. And I don't know. I don't want to get into the code too much, but anyway, you can see from here that we're using ES6 modules. You can see from this import $ from jQuery, and we're using other ES6 features here, which are compiled down. So I guess the next step would be to take a look at like how. Well, I think I'll open up. Let's go to. Okay, cool. So I'm in my local copy of the MP3 assets, and I'm on the master branch. So if I just do, and you can set up gulp to, you can set up the commands in gulp however you want. But if I just type in, we've set it up so that if I just type in gulp, it'll do like the full build. So yeah, you can see here's all the subtasks that we've defined. So there's a linting subtask, clean, which like wipes out stuff in wipes out the sort of build folder so that it can be repopulated. A bunch of compile things, lint stuff, yeah. Um, so that's what it looks like when you do a gulp build. And if you want to see like the magic that makes all that happen, it's in this gulp file.js. And obviously there's like all sorts of documentation online about how to make gulp work for you. There's some, like any tool, it's very powerful and it's pretty streamlined and easy to grasp, but there's some like kind of tricky corners with it too. But anyway, this is kind of a biggish file. For now, I just wanted to keep everything in here and not try and break things up too much. But you can see how the tasks are defined. So for instance, here's the task that does linting of your Sass. And this is just standard gulp stuff. One thing I do want to point out, for compiling and linting Sass and JS, I went ahead and created sort of satellite repositories. So you can see the CM gulp JS, for instance. That is another repository that's out here that I created that anyone can use. You can import it into your project if you want to. But it has it kind of abstracts away. So the compiler is using Babel to compile ES6 to ES5, and it's using Uglify JS for doing the minification, and it's using ESLint for the linting stuff. So the job of this repository is to kind of abstract away the different libraries that are getting used and just provide a couple of easy to use commands, plugins basically for gulp. But anyway, anybody can use this if they want to. It's got like default lint rules and stuff in it, so it's cool. What else? Okay, so let me stop right here and take a small detour. So something that we recently did, we had a bunch of Sass files that we had brought in, and I wanted to have linting on our Sass for a long time, just to enforce like a consistent style. So, and last week we managed to get everything so that it lints clean. So you can see, for instance, I don't know. I'm trying to bring up a big one, but I don't know if. Well, that's one. It's not very big, is it? Let me see if I can bring up a different one that has more stuff in it. Yeah, here. So so you can see like it's all very pretty and consistent styling, which is a good thing for as the code base grows and ages. So all that's enforced with the linting, and I can show you real quick. Get rid of all this stuff, and then I'm going to go here under I'm under MP3 assets, and I'm going to make something that will make the linter complain. So one thing we have here is one rule that we have is there's white spacing rules. So if I collapse that empty space right there, that vertical space out, the linter should complain. So let's see if it does. Yep, there we go. So you can see the linter complained about some extra space between blocks. So what we do is we make sure that devs run this gulp building command before they push a pull request up to GitHub, so that the devs can go ahead and clean up all these little sort of mechanical things by themselves before it gets pushed up. So that kind of takes away some of the burden from code reviewers to like, do like, oh, there's white space here, or variable name formats, or whatever, So let me put that back the way it was. And then if I do it again, you'll see that the lint warning goes away. Okay, cool. So I guess the next thing to go into would be pushing pull requests. So like, how do we merge things into master? Okay, so I'm going to create a branch, check out new branch, Kevin test. Okay, so I'm on a new branch, and I'm going to, I don't know, I'm going to do something. And I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to add a comment. I just added a comment to the app.js. The app.js is like the entry point for the application. So mostly in here, you just see a bunch of imports to bring in all of the submodules that it needs. But anyway, okay, so I've added a little comment there, and if I go to get status, I should see the change. So I'm going to do a commit. Add a useless comment. Okay, we're good. Now, now I'm ready for people to review it. So I'm gonna do a gulp build just to make sure that I don't have any compile errors or lint errors. And then, now I want to create a pull request. So I'm going to send this branch up to GitHub. So git push u origin Kevin test. Okay, so now that should be up on GitHub. So if I go to GitHub now, all right, so I refreshed the project page here, and GitHub is pretty helpful. It'll show you any branches that you just pushed up, and you can see this right here. So I pushed this less than a minute ago. Cool. And then it has this button here, compare and pull requests. So the basic idea is I'm going to submit a pull request. Other devs are going to review it, and then somebody, perhaps me or others, are going to merge it with master. So here we go. Open a pull request, and then I can look at what I changed. So here's the comment that I added. And I can put saying, hey, this is really important. Create pull request. So now if I go to the pull request tab under our repo, you can see this add a useless comment one. And the other people can come in here. Now, if everybody's set up with the proper notifications and whatnot, they'll see, they'll get an email, wherever that you have GitHub set up to send your emails. Which you can have GitHub send emails for notifications to Cox Media Group to a different place than you have GitHub sending other notifications. So that's how I have it set up. I have it set up so that any notifications for Cox Media Group get sent to my Cox Inc. email address. But anyway, other people will see it show up in their email. They'll look at it, and they can give it a +1. So GitHub has this cool feature. It's called saved replies, which is new, and you can add different saved replies. So I have one in here that I've created. It's called, I've named it Ship It, but it's basically just this +1 emoji. So leave that comment. And yes, and there's all these other little emoticons that you can put in here too. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so whenever um, so I feel like in the MP3 in the for the entertainment team, we've gotten to a really good place, a pretty good place with our our branch management workflow, where people are waiting for at least one shipment from like senior dev, and then we don't really have a we don't have like one developer that manages all the merging, although it tends to be like one of the senior devs tends to manage the merging, but you could do it any way you like. But if I wanted to merge this in, I would just hit this button, merge pull requests, which I'm not going to do because it's useless.
Yeah, and while we're reevaluating the code review process, I know it could be a hassle sometimes, especially when we were doing it for Medley. We had 2 ship bids, and sometimes it could take 2 or 3 days, 4 days, and people are just waiting on code review. So since we're looking at this again, I want to make sure to make code reviews kind of effortless and convenient to people while providing uh, an opportunity for peer feedback. So when you're doing code reviews, you can actually tag people, and as Kevin said, we could either have someone designated to look at them, or we could just have a group of people who look at them. But you could do that in the comments here, um, where you could just tag them, and they would get notified via email to review it.
Yeah, right. So you can add in a comment. You can add I don't know, PBX. He's not with us anymore. Tim Willis.
Right, and Kevin, would we typically name the pull request with the ticket number from version 1?
You can. Some people do that. Although I found that I don't really use that. I don't really use that title as a barometer of anything. And GitHub automatically it automatically tries to create a title that makes sense based on the commit. So I don't know. It's certainly like certainly.
So,
Go ahead.
so if someone's doing a code review, would they need to make a connection between the code that's in this module and what to compare it to from version 1? Not necessarily, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. So when I'm doing code reviews, I don't necessarily know what the person is working on, and I'm not really judging it based on I'm not really judging the work based on the acceptance criteria for there. It's more like does this look like it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, and are there better ways that we can structure the code to keep things tidy, or or whatever, or is there a cool little feature that you could use here, things like that.
Okay.
Right. I mean, ultimately, the individual developer is up to making sure it is responsible for making sure that their code works. But the review process is more. The purpose of the review is just to keep the overall code quality and architecture, as high as we can keep it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. Okay. So I need to close this pull request. And you can see here that after I closed it, it gave me this little dialog here that allows me to delete the branch. So you can have different policies on this, depending on what you guys think. But also, when you merge a pull request, it'll also show this little box that allows you to delete the remote branch. And we've been doing that because it just keeps the overall remote repository kind of clean. So instead of having, the difference is like, if you never delete out any branches, you're going to get under this branches list, it's just going to grow without bound. So it's just nice to keep things tidy and get rid of those branches when you don't need them anymore.
So you don't think there would be a need in the future to do some discovery from a prior branch, or is there a certain amount of time where I guess I can see some benefits maybe in keeping them around for a while.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we never really discussed this too much. So yeah, maybe it's something that should be discussed. As far as like, I mean, if you merge something in, all the commits from that branch are there. Now, whether it's easy to find those or not, is kind of
Yeah, sometimes that's the difficult part of it is knowing which commits, what a certain set of commits are doing, and that's a little bit easier if you have a branch that's still there in historical form. In the event that you ever need to go back and research something, something we can think about and talk about.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, good points. Um, yeah, another thing that reminds me of is um, in the medley workflow, we would let's see if I can remember this. The change management procedure. So in the medley workflow, after you had tested your changes and you had got your code review, thumbs ups, then your ticket, your story, whatever, would go to change management, and then the change management team would take a look at your old code reviews, just analyzing it for risks and things like that. So so that's another factor that might play into the decision of whether to keep branches up on GitHub or not. I haven't looked into it, so I don't know if how much that would bear on it or whatever. But anyway, all very good points. So let's see, what next?
I think a good branch, pivot from this point would probably just be, like you cover a lot of good things, Kevin. I don't know if you have the server side code review process polished enough to show it, or if there's more work you want to do on that.
Well, there's not really too much more work on the tool itself. It's more we're not. Yeah, it's the entertainment team probably. It's the code is all very much in flux right now, so that makes it a little difficult. And also, I don't think everyone's been set up. I don't think the Subversion setup, like I don't think everyone's been set up with a Subversion, login. So that's another thing that makes it a little difficult.
Okay.
I'm imagining that once things settle down a little bit, then a process will be easier to manage. But I don't know.
Okay.
And also it's kind of, I think it's a little up in the air as far as like whether we're going to try to do like local branching kind of things, local-ish branching,
That's true. That's true. Yeah, we could just revisit that. So yeah, if I had a user story as a new developer, from this point, I think it would be great if we covered like what's a page we could look at to install the packages, get set up, what repo we go to. You're already looking at it here, and then how you would view it on your local host and make changes.
Yeah. So taking it from the very beginning, yeah. Right. So most of the instructions for getting up and going are right here. First, you'd need node version 4 or greater. Then you'd need the gulp command line tool. So you run this command right here. Yeah, you might have to, if you're on a Mac or something, you might get an error, like a permissions error when you try and install things globally, because npm will try and put commands into a common folder, which you may or may not your login may or may not have access to, but this link right here will show you how to fix all that up. And then we've also run into issues with people that are on Windows. Git on Windows not remembering their GitHub password. So then it's kind of a couple steps removed from this, but when you try and do an npm install later, npm will try and contact GitHub to download some stuff, and then the Git client won't like have remembered your password and it'll like error out. But anyway, we found the if you're on Windows, then you can follow this link right here and it'll get you over that hump. But yeah, then you do a git clone. So I can take it from this part and show. So let me go out and let me create a new folder here called demos. And then I'm going to execute this git clone, and then this is just the git HTTPS URL for this repository. So here you go. Cloning into MP3 assets, and done. And then I'm going to go into that folder, and you can see it's got, got all the stuff there. But if I try and do gulp, it's not going to work because none of the dependencies for this package have been installed yet. And you can see the dependencies if you're curious by going into the package.json file.
Nice. Nice.
And so the dependencies for the actual front-end code, you can see here under dependencies. So we have Bootstrap, and then we have jQuery for now. There'll be others. But dev dependencies, this is where we have all the dependencies for doing the compilation and this and that and the other. And you can see here is these 4 entries are CMG packages, and you can tell it a GitHub URL, and this little bit at the end here is a tag, a git tag identifier, so that it pulls down the right version. But anyway, in order to install all these dependencies, we're going to do npm install. And we should go do something else now because it's going to take a while. npm, since it was updated to version 3, it's quite a bit slower, and also there's just a lot of dependencies. Like, the dependency tree is pretty big. But anyway, that'll, you have an excuse to get up and get some coffee or something.
Right. I know this will take a minute, but you pretty much already have it set up in another directory, right, Kevin?
Yes, I do.
Okay, cool. So you could probably just cancel that and just go to the other directory just to move on.
Yeah. Okay, right. So I guess I can show you. Oh, well, let me show you this proxy thing now. So still going. Okay. So yeah, like I said, let's say you're working with some style sheet stuff. So you're editing your SAS files, and you want to see the changes immediately. And so how do you do that? And obviously you don't want to have to copy stuff up to method every time you make a change. So that's where this proxy server thing comes in. So Tim Willis developed the original proxy server for the 512 group, and this just uses basically the same technology. So here I'm actually, you can see it finally finished. So I'm going to type in this command. And by the way, I'm going to go into gulp file and show you. Well, the proxy stuff is a bit complicated, but anyway, you can come in here and copy and paste this stuff out if you want to. But it also uses another CMG repository that I created called CM method proxy. So you can, anybody that wants to can check that out and do bug fixes or whatever on that too. But anyway, gulp proxy access Atlanta. So here we go. So you can see it did all the compiling and whatnot, and then starting proxy for site access Atlanta to previewdev.accessatlanta.com, and then listening on localhost 9011. So if I go to localhost 9011. there is the site with loading the front end assets from the local server. So if I make a change to one of these files, so let's say I go into app.js here, and I don't know, put in let's put in window console.log, and I'm putting window in there for a reason. Actually, I don't think I need it. I don't remember what the linting rules are for that off the top of my head. But anyway, event was here. Okay, so I'd save that, and if I go back over, just a second. I'm actually editing the wrong repository. Sorry, demo fail. Because I cloned it into, because I was just showing you the cloning, I cloned it into a different thing, and then, but I edited the code for the original one. Anyway, let me restart the, okay, good. So I'm going to put it back the way it was before. And then, let's see, I should be able to do this side by side, but I can't. I mean, I could, but. Kevin was here. And then I'm going to save it. And then it'll rebuild automatically, rebuild those assets automatically. So if I go back over here and refresh the page and look at the console, it should say Kevin was here. Cool. So yeah, so it has automatic reloading, and same deal with the style sheets. So I don't know if this is going to work because I don't know much about how we have things set up. Okay, I don't know, background color blue. I have no idea if this is going to work or not. So rebuild completed successfully, good. Refresh the page. Well, it didn't work because there's some other rule that's better. But anyway, it would have worked.
Yeah, and I want to add in here that you notice how he's going to localhost. So it's actually using method to render all of the backend templates, and is serving the media via proxy using your local host. So I think it's running on Node, right?
Yeah, so this little proxy server is running on Node, and right, exactly. What it does is anything that, and I have it set up in the gulp file to do this, but anything that's, any request for something under the assets folder gets served from your local, your local file system, and everything else gets proxied to the method server. So that's why you can have a method generate the HTML and whatnot, but then and at the same time have your style sheets and JS served from your file system.
And that's really nice. I mean, you have method, and by nature is pretty rigid when it comes to operating concurrently due to the locking mechanism. So with this, it gives you a sense of localization, and you can do work independently of your coworkers and get things ready, make them look good, and then once you're finally finished, you could commit that up to the dev server.
Yeah. Yeah, we've also recently added source map support, which is something that the 512 tech group had for a while, but we just added it here. But anyway, with source maps, basically when the build task builds all this CSS, it also creates this other file called a map file, and then your DevTools, your Chrome DevTools knows how to find that map file and then display it in the DevTools here. So for instance, I can view the original SCSS files here. So that's a pretty cool feature for developers.
I had one little question about this here. So as far as the proxy host that you're running, does that mean that you can go to different sections on the local site you have running, and that will allow you to see those pages?
Yeah, exactly. So I could put in, I don't know, I don't know. Basically, I could put anything here. I don't know. If somebody on the entertainment team has a good URL for me to go to, blah 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 blah. If anybody on the on the entertainment team has a good URL, just paste it to me and I'll try it out.
Would you be able to use the links in the header there, or are those going to point to something else?
Well, you can't use these links because these aren't.
They're not.
Yeah, but oh, here we go.
I think those links aren't set up yet, or they go to the actual Access Atlanta website.
Okay.
Yeah, but to answer your question, if they're rendered as relative links, then those will work. Absolute URLs, won't work necessarily.
Okay, got you. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but anyway, here Tim pasted this one to me, so yeah, and it should, if I just copy this, it should be the same exact URL for. Can I do this without messing up? Yeah, so here's the same URL, but instead of localhost, it's preview dev. Yeah. Yep.
Can you put that link in IRC, please?
Yeah, Tim, could you post it in the somewhere in IRC?
Sure.
Cool. Okay. So does anybody have any other questions about that proxy server thing? So I'm going to stop mine. So it's a standard Control-C to stop. Oh, okay. Mason, you want to put your question and just shoot it to me in IRC? I don't know what the delay lag is here. I have to wait for a second for him to respond, maybe. So
yeah. In YouTube, the broadcast is probably like 30 seconds behind or so.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so he says, I noticed SCSS in the Chrome DevTools when I was connected to the proxy. And so I was showing, let me fire up the proxy one more time.
And anyone else watching this, you could post your questions via the method channel. Okay,
so this is a question about source maps. So yeah, let me dig a little bit deeper into that. So I've started up the proxy. I went to this home page here, and I'm opening up Chrome DevTools, and I was showing under Sources, under the Sources tab, I can drill down under Source, and then if I go under these, if I go down the tree here, I can see this is actually reflecting the source SAS files instead of the built CSS file. So for instance, here's the chart, and you can see SAS stuff like this @include. So what's going on here? Well, let me just go over to the actual source code. And if I go under this assets folder, so this assets folder is what's automatically generated through the build process. So I'm going to go under assets common, and then the CSS is written to the CSS folder. So you can see under here there's an app.css, which is a huge file that has it has the Bootstrap stuff, and it has everything, all the rules bundled in here as normal, compiled CSS. And then there's also this app.css.map file. And at the very bottom of the app.css file, there's this little comment here. It's all generated by the build tools. It's all kind of like standardized for build tools. But anyway, it contains a pointer to the map file. And then if you're curious about what a map file looks like, it's pretty gnarly. But it contains basically the source code of your, whatever you wrote your source code in. So in this case, it's Sass. It contains all of it, and it also contains it contains information that allows it to map like a line number in the build file to the line number in the original source file. And basically, Chrome knows how to look at that little comment at the end of the CSS file, load in the that map file, and then display the mapped representation here in the sources view. So yeah, that's source maps, and like I say, it's all standardized, and most of the build plugins, most of the build tools, in the Node ecosystem support it to one degree or another. So yeah, cool stuff. Hopefully that answered the question. Yeah, just quickly, in case you're curious of how that magic happens in the gulp file. Here in the gulp file, we import in this source maps gulp plugin, so you can see require gulp source maps, and then for the Sass compilation tasks, when you set up this gulp pipeline here, you call source maps init, and then you do all your stuff, and then at the end of the pipe, just before you write the files out, at the end of the pipe, you do the source maps dot write. So it seems like magic, but it's not actually. Okay, I think that brings us to maybe this gulp push command. So I'm going to, well, let me back up a bit. So we have this local proxy that you can use to develop your own stuff, and all that seems good. And then you create a pull request, and then somebody merges it in, or you merge it in after you've gotten your shipits. So then you want other people to see your work, but they don't have your local proxy server running. So you need to get your work up to method into that assets folder. So we used to copy the files manually. So for instance, I would build everything, and then I would go under the assets folder, and then I would take this app.js and I would go into Eclipse, and I would say, okay, what is the thing? Right click and then upload local file, like that. And obviously it's unpleasant, but Tim discovered the trick to be able to programmatically push things into method. So it turns out that the method servers also provide this WebDAV service. So WebDAV is like, it's a bit ridiculous, but basically a web server is running on a certain port on this development box here, and on that port it listens to special HTTP requests. So like your normal HTTP requests are going to be GET and POST and whatever. WebDAV takes those and it adds some additional HTTP verbs to to give you like this remote document storage management, capability. So yeah, Tim discovered that, and then so once he discovered that, I took that and did some experimenting with it and wrote a little library for uploading files using WebDAV. So if I go to, where is it? Yeah. So CM WebDAV is the little package that I created. And the documentation isn't too great, but it can show you the basic usage. And I think this is a little out of date. I need to update it. Note to self. But yeah, it just abstracts away some of the hairy bits and gives you an interface that allows you to easily upload, a file or a folder. And then so I'm using this package, the CM WebDev package, in the gulp file, and I could show that real quick. So here's where I'm bringing in this CM WebDAV library, and then in this push task, so gulp task push, first it's going to do a build. So this is the dependent tasks, and then when it's done doing the build, it'll come in here and do all this stuff. A lot of the complexity of all this, a bunch of this stuff is just asking the user for a username and password. But the real meat of it is right here. Creates the client thing and then uses the upload method of that client thing. So no magic. Okay, so I'm going to demo this. And let me make sure I'm at the right place. And then I want to check out master. Okay, cool. And I'm just going to do a git pull just in case anything has been changed on the server. Okay, so now I'm going to do a gulp push. First thing it's going to do is build everything. And then it's going to ask me for my method, username and password. And then it'll ask me, are you sure? And I say yes. And then it uploads each one. And it looks like I got an error. Taboola header section.js is locked. So yeah, I just need to go to the server and make sure that's unlocked. I'm not sure why it's locked, but... And I don't know if I can unlock it. I have to get someone to unlock it. So this doesn't get... Yeah, so this doesn't get around the locking, unlocking issue. So, the locking thing is still has to be managed. So
yeah, you can unlock it. Yeah.
Can I just do that?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Who's this guy? Who's that person?
I'm not sure.
Okay, yeah, you can unlock it. Cool.
So Mason's asking if we could change the tool so that it confirms that all the files are unlocked before it tries to push anything. Yeah, that's possible. It would take a bit of development effort because let me try. I'm kind of trying to think off the top of my head here. First, you have to pull down the info. It uses this WebDAV thing, right? So first you have to pull down all the info, and then part of the info is lock information. So you have to kind of parse that out and see what's locked and what's not. It's definitely possible. It would just take a little bit of work, and it might take a little bit of change to that CM WebDAV library too. I'm not sure. Anyway, let me try and run this again. Yeah, so there it's done. Although right now we've only have it uploading 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like 8 files. My vision was to have it so that we were storing like all of our assets, like even fonts and images and things like that, also in the GitHub repo. And I think once we get to doing that, if we get there, then we might need to change this push tool to be a little more clever, so it only uploads things that have changed, and that would keep it from taking forever. But just maybe an enhancement for the future. But anyway, yep, success. So any questions about that? Oh, cool. I'm not exactly sure what to cover next about the front-end repo stuff. I think that's about it.
I think so, Kevin. I mean, you've gone over code reviews, the local host, how to start a new repo. You've gone over, actually packaging the media assets. Well, actually, does this include that? Because does it do the minification and linting and deploy it to like a distribution folder and then it sends it over?
Yep, exactly.
Oh, okay. So you already got that taken care of. Yeah, we'll see if there are any questions, I think.
Are we minifying these files at this point, or is that going to come later? Are we going to add that later?
Yeah, so MP3 assets, the current master, it does do minification. Yeah, you can see, you should be able to see. Well, maybe not. Anyway, I think there's something like messed up with when you push, it's not generating the minified file, but the full build will generate a minified file, minified JS file. But I do have a change in a pull request for that changes slightly how that works, and it's something that we should probably discuss, like whether we should, now that we okay, so the pull request that I'm mentioning also adds source map support for JS. So there's the question of, like, if we are delivering source maps, then we probably only need to push up a minified file. It's, you have source maps, so it's not a whole lot of benefit to having an unminified blob.
Right.
So yeah, there's an improvement there, but there's a pull request out there that we can look at. It's not doing any CSS minification right now. I think the 512 repo was doing CSS minification, but that could be added as well. I just wasn't sure like how much benefit there was to minifying. Maybe there's a lot. I don't know.
Right. And so I guess it looks like if there are any bootstrap changes, we're not rebuilding that bootstrap file each time. That'd be a one-time thing. If we have any changes to the bootstrap library, that'd be a one-time. It looks like it's not included here.
Well, actually, Bootstrap, every time you run a build, Bootstrap does get recompiled.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So you can see under app.scss, the main entry point for the SAS files, it does this import, and then it has this funky node modules path. So it actually does import Bootstrap CSS, and it has this. It's importing the common variables first because in the variables file there are it sets up the variables that Bootstrap will then use.
Okay, that's how we would override. So,
yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we just have an offline conversation going on about web dev and how to. Richard mentioned that was a good find because it's a method specific type of integration, and it's just good to know about these magical things that
Yeah.
your system supports.
Yeah.
Um,
Is
if
Richard
anyone has a link, yeah,
is Richard on the Hangout or just on IRC?
yeah, he's in IRC chatting.
Yeah, I was wondering. I'd noticed that he had added the dependencies and stuff to his project, and I was wondering how it was going.
Yeah, I'm curious to get those guys set up too. Tim and Kevin, they're very interested in what you guys have. So yeah,
Yes.
but let's yeah.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to use any of these, packages that are out there and you have trouble or anything, just let me know.
Good, good. This is very, very helpful, Kevin. Thank you. Are there any more questions?
Yeah, this has been great. I've still got some ongoing questions that Alan is helping me with in terms of modifications to HTML and JBT files in Eclipse. But yeah, this is great for the front end stuff.
Richard, in response to your question, Tim, he said, "How's it going? Awesome. It took 30 minutes to get it working."
I don't
Uh,
know whether that's good or bad.
that's- 30 minutes sounds like a pretty short time to me.
Yeah,
That's pretty good.
cool.
Yeah, especially considering npm install taking most of that or some of that.
Right.
Yeah, we're actually getting into the code review process. And you know how we were just doing bulk commits and bulk updates, and then we went into a code freeze. So we're doing an audit of like the user stories that haven't been deployed to production, and it's about 10 of them right now. So we created one big Jira ticket, and we're like, here are the version 1 stories that need to be deployed. And then moving forward, I think they're thinking about the branching strategy, as you said, Kevin, and introducing the Jira aspect just for CRB. So that's what I'm curious about. And I think one of the good things about what we have right now is it's a lightweight process, but at the same time, it's really not a process for code deployment, which definitely needs some attention.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I'm curious about all of that moving forward.
Yeah, right. So code deployment, yeah, this is kind of getting off track, I suppose, but code
Yeah.
deployment is like the current thinking is that it's, subversion based because that's, what's sort of provided with method. Yeah. Although, I've been kind of curious since we have this WebDAV thing. I've been kind of curious if you could like use that for deployment instead of Subversion, but I don't know.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Well, cool. Maybe we could just set up another meeting for the. Oh, it looks like Richard, you have a pull request here. All right, cool. Someone check that out. But yeah, we'll probably just set up another meeting, see how code deployment is doing. I think the radio team has a more aggressive timeline than us for things like that. But
Okay.
as far as this video, I feel comfortable with distributing it to and rewatching it myself to people who are coming in wanting to learn about this process. I'm really glad you guys are stepping in and being the pioneers in the way that we could handle these assets and do integrations and like embrace these modern front end technologies because like you have HTML, you have JavaScript, you have CSS, SAS, Node. These aren't going anywhere. These are very, very good skill sets to have. So we could still live in that world um, by kind of by this process we have here. So we could just keep making it better, adding on to it, adding more awesome gulp tasks. And something else I would like to see is a browser refresh too. So you won't even have to refresh your browser. I think Tim kind of played around with that, but if anyone could do a pull request for that, that would further automate things. So we could have this totally automated too. And I think the missing puzzle was the web dApp thing. So that gives us, I think, unlimited integration with Method.
Yeah.
All right, good. Any more questions for Kevin?
Nice work.
Thanks.
Yep,
Yeah.
very nice work. Okay, well, cool. I'll go ahead and stop the recording. This is a good distribution here. And so thanks again, Kevin. Awesome work.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, everybody.